Well, there's a new report that's just been released which measures how much New Zealanders trust the news media. Now, despite the media spin you will read, the report, well, I think it makes grim reading. And as you hear this latest data, ask yourself, what other industry would not be hugely embarrassed by these statistics? And then wouldn't they make significant changes rather than digging their heels in? Now, before I give you the very latest polling, the views of New Zealanders, let's just remind ourselves. At the end of last month, the Edelman Trust Barometer, a global study published every year, revealed that while trust in media has slightly increased worldwide, trust in New Zealand media continues to slide. We dropped to 35%, and that's down from 41% 2 years ago. Now, the drop in this graph, they show just based on last year. So it's been a gradual drop, but 41% down to 35% in just 2 years. But note on the far right there, the global trust rate, the black, it's increased. So trust in news media worldwide has actually increased on average, but New Zealand has gone against the trend, which is a real slight on our media, isn't it? So that's March. And then earlier, before that, in February, the 2024 Quality of Life Survey was released. It was a collaborative local government research project run by Ipsos, which is a large international polling company. And at the end of last year, a total of just under 7,000 respondents completed the Quality of Life Survey. So it's a big survey. And they asked, amongst other things, about trust in media. And this large poll shows that just 27% of Kiwis have some level of trust for the news media. Just under half of us, 48%, have various levels of distrust, with the remaining 25% sitting on the fence. And then last October, a new survey by academics from Victoria University and the University of Otago was reported, with an accompanying op-ed by the authors in eveningreport.nz, a news website. And they found that 60% of survey participants reported that they sometimes, often, or almost always avoid the news, in the red square there. In fact, if you add in the rarely avoid it, that means that 81% of us avoid it to some extent. But this total of 60% in the red box is higher than any other national figure reported in other studies. The average news avoidance across the 46 countries surveyed by Reuters was 32%. The average. We're almost double that. Yep, we have some of the highest rates of news avoidance in the world. Now, also at the end of last year, the Human Rights Commission recently released New Horizon research on treaty trust. In other words, the reporting of the treaty. And who do we trust and not trust for reliable information on the Treaty of Waitangi and the associated Treaty Principles Bill? Now, they surveyed at the end of 2023 and then again at the end of last year in the heat of the treaty's principle bill being introduced into Parliament and the associated hikoi. And what they found was that only 13%, that I've underlined in yellow there, 13%, 1/3 of us trust English language news media to provide us with accurate information about the treaty. It's 16% for Māori language news media. So that means that 87% of us are suspicious of the information we're receiving from the news media. Shocking. But probably one of the most significant surveys that even the New Zealand media notice and sometimes even report was released this weekend, or the weekend just gone. And how has the media fared after another year of shocking reporting, including their reporting of Green MP Benjamin Doyle, their atrocious coverage of the US election, which totally embarrassed them, their unified action to cancel an advertisement we tried to place simply asking what is a woman, and another ad recently last week from Hobson's Pledge, their shutting down of any debate on puberty blockers and transgender sports issues, and many other examples which I'm sure you can think of, and is probably the reason you no longer watch the 6 p.m. news or listen to the news on the radio or read the newspapers. So the Trust in New Zealand Aotearoa New Zealand report, produced by the AUT Research Centre for Journalism, Media and Democracy, and it's in collaboration with the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, is a survey of 47 countries. What'd they find? Well, the slide continues. In 2020, 53% of us, more than half of New Zealanders, trusted news in general. That figure is now 32%. It's a 21% percentage point drop. Just 1 in 3 New Zealanders trust most of the news most of the time. So that's not even fully trust. It's just most of the news most of the time. In 2025, general trust in news in New Zealand was substantially lower than the Reuters Digital News Report's international average of 47 countries. Internationally, we're competing with the US for the lowest levels of trust, but that's us in the blue there, and that's the average in green. I mean, in football terms, on the football table, we're in relegation zone. And then, interestingly, interest in news is higher in New Zealand than in comparable markets. That's our interest out the right-hand side there in orange. And people in other markets are more worn out by the news than New Zealanders. So New Zealanders are actually interested in the news. So what type of news do we want? Well, the report found that most are interested in local news, international news, and political news, and they're least interested in celebrity and entertainment news and fun news. Now, interestingly, you'll see there 2/3 of the way down, social justice issues of race and gender was towards the bottom. It's around, 34%. Perhaps people are just tired of the insanity and want to get back to reality. So where do we get our news? Well, of the social media platforms in blue there, Facebook was the main source of news for New Zealanders. But YouTube has grown fast as a news platform. 33% used it as a news source, but this year it was up to 43%, according to the report. About 39% use Instagram, and surprisingly, 17% use TikTok. Yeah, go figure. But you'll see there down the bottom, the most popular were New Zealand Herald, TVNZ, and Stuff. And we tend to trust those we consume the most, which is probably not a surprise. Now, trust in news in general is falling, as you'll see on the far left there, overall. But what we specifically consume, the second group of graphs there, or choose to consume, is a little bit higher. And that's not surprising, is it? I mean, is that called confirmation bias? But here's the interesting graph, and it's the one that the media have grabbed hold of in their reports, but I'm not sure they should have. Now, this table suggests that it breaks down all the major media outlets in New Zealand, and this table suggests that in 2025, trust in all news brands improved from 2024. That's what you'll read in all the media reports over the next 48 hours. So that's out the far right, but that's from 2024. So that's just in the last 12 months that they've highlighted. But note the column that I've circled. It covers the last 5 years, the 5-year trend, and they're all still in the negative, double-digit percentage negative in virtually all of them. And look how low down that list News Talk ZB and the New Zealand Herald are, 5.4 and 5.5 respectively out of 10. Now, the report says that those who most trust Radio New Zealand sit mostly on the left or centre left, which is that big, dark blue bar out the far left. Those who most trust TVNZ are mostly on the left, and centre. Now, note that Radio New Zealand and TVNZ are the two government-funded media outlets. And the graph shows that those who most trust the New Zealand Herald are mostly on the centre-left, centre and right, so a bit of balance there maybe. And those who most trust News Talk ZB are mostly on the centre or right of the political spectrum. But look at this graph. Those towers, those 3 big towers there, those show those who most mistrust Radio New Zealand, TVNZ, Stuff, and there's also Newsroom there. And the people who most mistrust them are on the right of the political spectrum. And those mistrusting News Talk ZB tend to sit on the left of the political spectrum. And most of those who mistrust the New Zealand Herald are on both the left or right. So maybe that's a compliment to the New Zealand Herald. Interestingly, distrust of the media is shared by all age groups. That's the blue tower on the left of each age group. But note the distrust of especially the 55 to 64 and the 65 to 74 age groups. But it's across all ages. Now, the report also shows that among both Māori and Pākehā, there is significantly more mistrust of news than trust in it compared to other ethnic groups. Those who trust news the least tend to sit on the right of the political spectrum. Although, I don't think that'll be much of a surprise because previous research has shown that the political leanings of the media themselves, they lean left. And that's actually by their own admission. Some other interesting stats: approximately 27% of New Zealanders have paid for a digital subscription or digital print bundle to access online news content. So they pay for their news, 27%. That's higher than the US, Australia and UK, but it's about the same as Nordic countries on average. And approximately 85% of people said they trusted a news brand that was transparent and open. 81% trusted a news outlet that had high journalistic standards, and 80% trusted a brand that was not unreasonably biased. So maybe that explains why a lot of people don't trust the media at the moment. Concerns were raised about perceptions of bias and spin, political bias, pushing ideological agendas, which are often left-leaning or inconsistent, blurred line between fact and opinion, marginalisation of dissenting voices. So no surprises amongst some of those comments. So how did the media elite respond to this? Well, One News said, trust in news stabilises after sharp decline over 5 years. The New Zealand Herald said, trust score bounce back for individual news outlets. New Zealand's most trusted media sources revealed. Radio New Zealand said trust in news survey slump stalls after 5 years in freefall. And Stuff said trust in media stabilises. Yeah, quite the sales pitch, isn't it? Now, as I said at the start, what other industry would not be hugely embarrassed by these stats and then wouldn't make significant changes rather than digging their heels in? Oh, the spin-off hasn't reported it yet, as at time of recording this, probably because they don't want people to know that they have one of the lowest trust ratings for New Zealand news brands. Well deserved though. But here's the key thing. Nobody that I could see appeared to be asking the key question. Why do 2 in 3 Kiwis still not trust them? You know, much of this decline is happening because many Kiwis can see for themselves the extreme bias coming from an increasingly woke media and their selective use of information to support certain progressive agendas. Boy, we saw that last week with the coverage of the Green MP and the Bussygate scandal, didn't we? Many people also believe the media has mostly become a marketing and PR department for the government and are compromised by government funding. And that was certainly the view over COVID between 2020 and 2023. And you saw some of that in the survey as well. And the numbers show that it's not just right-wing people turning off, because it's left-wing and right-wing both turning off. It's both of them. It's not anti-mandate people or people who didn't want the vaccine or climate change deniers or TERFs or white people. This survey is showing that Kiwis from all sides and all ages and all ethnicities have had enough. 2 in 3 Kiwis are saying, we don't trust you. Do better. But instead of reporting the news and presenting facts, the media has increasingly become activists, pushing opinions instead of facts, trying to control the narrative. And we've proved that through our analyses of how they covered the cannabis referendum, the conversion therapy debate, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the mandate protest on Parliament grounds. Look, we deserve better. This report, another report, should actually be a wake-up call to the media if they want to avoid going bust. And the report refers to how challenging it's been for the media industry over the last 12 to 24 months. But I don't think they'll change. Their desire to push an agenda outweighs their desire to survive. Individually, there are some fantastic, committed journalists with integrity. But as an industry, it's on its knees. Will it get back up again? I just don't know. And as someone who was involved in the media, it's very sad that we've got to this point.